The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everyone. I'm so pleased to have you on the call today. Today, our webinar is entitled How to Use Career Paths to Support Your IT Talent in a Changing Industry, Competencies, Certifications, and Progressions. And I find this topic very relevant. In a past life, I actually worked at a IT staffing firm called Computer People, and it was always a great challenge to keep up with what our clients needed in terms of skills so that we could produce the individuals that they needed to help complete their projects. So I hope that this is very beneficial for you. The webinar is being recorded, and it will be available for download on our website. Our marketing team will send out a note letting you know when it's up, so that if you would like to reference material later on, it will be available for you. My name is Linda Janak, and I'm the CEO and president of TalentGuard. We'll talk a little bit more about TalentGuard at the end of the presentation. And today with me, I have Jennifer Corson, the Director of People Operations at Iventure. Iventure is a client of TalentGuard and has been for several years using our career path and certification tracking system. And she's going to share a little bit about the challenges that she's had in managing and staffing and developing technical talent. So Jennifer, please say hello and share a little bit of information about you and your company.
Thank you, Linda. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited to be on today's call with Linda. A little bit about Iventure. So we are a premium IT service provider with 3 locations across Florida in Jacksonville, Orlando, and Tampa. We offer managed services, strategic consulting, help desk, cloud, and security offerings to our clients with a heavy emphasis on providing great customer service at all times. We have about 190 clients and 96 employees currently, and are expecting to double those numbers in 3 years. Being a premium IT provider, having not only the best of the best from a technical standpoint, but also from a customer service standpoint is very crucial for us. Growth and development of our team is extremely important to our company, and with the unemployment rate in IT being less than 2%, having solid and strong technical staff that we can promote from within is really vital to our success.
Yeah.
So hence why we use, this tool, TalentGuard, and are so devoted to developing and having a career path for our team.
Yep, definitely. Thank you, Jennifer. Skill gaps are a global challenge for IT. I'm sure that many of you on the phone today are experiencing that. Nearly every company that TalentGuard has interacted with has reported a gap between their team's skill levels and certification requirements and the knowledge and expertise required to achieve those objectives, just like Jennifer shared. This webinar today is going to explore these challenges in depth, and we're going to discuss solutions and best practices for overcoming them. Now, the IT challenge that companies are facing are astounding. Indeed.com just completed a recent study of about 1,000 hiring managers and recruiters, and they found that about 50% of companies are settling for less than qualified IT candidates. That's, it's just a shame, and I put some quotes up there that you can read. I won't recite them for you. But the research has revealed that these companies are struggling to hire for reasons such as the skills shortage in their local area, the university isn't not putting out enough qualified candidates, sourcing the talent with the depth and breadth of skills needed to do the work. And then also one of the biggest challenges is keeping pace with those escalating salaries, benefits, and perks. Jennifer, any other thoughts that you've had there with your company?
Yeah, much of what we find out there are people who get very siloed in what they do from a technology standpoint. So they either, usually know a lot about one type of technology, maybe it's servers or desktop, and then they don't have any really good experience with networking security. And I know, being a managed service provider, our team's dealing with a variety of different clients and a variety of different networks. So our team really has to know a little bit about a lot. They need to be generalists, and these type of candidates are really harder to find. So I know one way we've really gotten around this has been, hiring for those soft skills at the help desk level and training and teaching them on the technical, and then moving them up in the company from there. It's worked really well for us, and that's why, now we're devoting a ton of energy into career pathing and making sure our employees know where they stand from a technical standpoint. and what they need to do to get to that next step, which is, another reason why we kind of moved to this software.
Got it. So it's not just IT consulting companies like Iventure that are struggling to hire IT talent. TalentGuard has worked with companies in healthcare, oil and gas, retail, and financial services because technology is also vital to their success. And in a recent statistic, I was on CompTIA's website the other day looking up some stats, and they estimate that a net new 626,000 tech job openings were created in Q4 2016. So that's a lot of competition for organizations to hire talent. Now, I also read this great special report by Global Knowledge, and we'll cite that many times throughout this. I highly encourage you to download it. And they say that the war for talent is escalating, particularly in those disruptive technologies such as big data analytics, cloud computing, cyber security, mobile app development, robotics. In that study, they say that 31% of IT decision makers are reporting having the most difficult time finding cybersecurity talent first, and then cloud computing is a strong second. So if those are skills that are in your organization, I would certainly take a strong look at how do you develop those in particular. I think the other thing that is growing in terms of its importance is IT certifications. They really matter more than ever. If you look at the majority of IT job descriptions out there, you're going to see organizations listing those as requirements rather than nice to have. And it does make a huge difference for employees seeking those. On average, Global Workforce said for those people with certain IT certifications, they're getting about $8,400 more annually in their compensation than those without. So to meet future demands, CIOs and even HR teams need to invest in developing the skills of existing employees, as Jennifer just said with her. The challenge is that many of these organizations have inconsistent job and competency definitions to support those operations, and that makes assessing those skills and determining what workforce talent you have in-house much more difficult. And if you don't know the talent you have in-house, and if you have a high contract workforce, you're really putting your organization at risk. So assessing talent is imperative if organizations want to eliminate the risk of skill shortages in key business areas. Now, I'd like to just pause here for a minute and take a poll to see what's going on with the people on the phone. So I'm going to launch that, and you should see that coming up on your screen. Are you challenged with closing employee skill gaps within your organization? In most particular, we are talking about IT skill gaps. And I will wait just a minute here for people to answer. Okay, I'm going to close the poll and share the results. 94%. Wow, that's outstanding. It's higher than I thought it would be. So yeah, this topic then is pretty important. So let me get this poll out of here. The results. Okay. So what can we do about that? How can CIOs help employees build new skills, invest in additional training and certifications, and ensure people are growing in their careers? Well, TalentGuard and Iventures recommend 5 steps to agile workforce planning for IT. And these are: first, defining the right roles; 2, assessing proficiency gaps; 3, developing your people's skills; 4, implementing automation. Of course, we have to talk about that; and monitoring and measuring results. So let's get into that. Step 1, defining the right role. What does it mean to define the right role? Well, Burson by Deloitte indicates that leaders must rely on job-specific competencies to provide them with the detail on the skills, knowledge, and capabilities of their employees. They need to do that because it is the common language that an organization needs to discuss talent internally. However, they cite that only 23% of organizations actually use competency-based roles and conduct competency-based interviews, internal and when they're hiring. And they say that this number is actually lower when we're considering technical competencies. So why do we need a common language to discuss talent? Well, for me, it's quite simple, having been in this business for so long. It helps standardize the definitions of IT job roles so that we can assess employees' current skills, use those definitions to hire the best IT talent that meet the organization's needs and their gaps, and set fair and consistent salary plans. Those are the main reasons. The other reason is that a common language sets clear expectations of what excellence looks like. Employees don't have to guess what you deem awesome or great. So why should CIOs use it? Use libraries, whether you build it yourself or buy it. Well, Burson cites several reasons, and I know TalentGuard and Iventures have experienced the same, building some of these strategies out. And that is identifying IT areas that are strengths and weaknesses for the organization as a whole, having a detailed view of skills, not just with individuals, but across teams, across departments, and across geographies, so that we can take that data and do targeted learning and spend those dollars wisely on areas where we have gaps. And then lastly, establishing hiring goals. So based on what skills we need, where do we need to go outside the organization to fill those gaps? Now, we're going to talk a little bit about two solutions that you can take to building out your competency framework. And I'm going to talk to buying an IT framework, and Jennifer is going to talk to building an IT framework. Now, the criteria that we've used, I gathered from both IBM and Burson, like what is going to determine the right strategy for you. And this is that common language, setting clear expectations, how to achieve velocity, the global reach that is required. Is it based on industry standards? And then what is the cost? And I'm not going to go through each of these individually, but Jennifer and I will talk to them as we progress through the various slides. Now, when I'm talking about an IT framework today, I'm going to be referencing IBM Connex's pre-built IT framework, just so that you have that reference. So let's take a deeper look at what it looks like. Let's explore a pre-built IT structure and job inventory in great length. In IBM's library, it covers about 21 job families, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Across those job families, they are able to help organizations cover 414 instrumental job titles. And then within the job framework, that structure, they provide for the title, the job family, the band that job sits in. It covers the responsibilities of the job, focus, comp data, behavior, and skills. Now, when we're talking about skills, as you can see here in the competencies box, we're covering a tremendous amount of current and disruptive IT skills. So we cover the specific technical skills themselves. They cover product skills, tools, foundational, leadership, all of the things that are required to help somebody be proficient in an individual contributor role and a leadership role. And then across those competencies, we look at proficiencies at 4 levels, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, most organizations stop there. IBM takes it a step further. When you buy this library, not only do they give you the behaviors and proficiencies, they give you learning resources, they give you SMART goals, they serve up coaching tips, interview questions, and these accelerators are used across your entire talent management infrastructure. So it's a tremendous amount of information that can be used to get you off the ground. Now, people always ask me, because we embed this data in our software, what job families does it cover? So you can see here the 21 job families, including data analytics, bid computing, and mobile computing, right? So they're super current. And then the second question I get asked is, Are the job titles super generic, or do they get deep into the data? And they get very deep into the data. And in this particular view, if you pay attention to, just as an example, website content management, we have about 19 specific job titles across here. So you can see that we provide everything from a junior to a specialist. So we have some of that laddering on a vertical level pre-built, and then TalentGuard helps with the lattice. So you can take this data, map it to yours, right? So we do a little bit of analysis there, and then get the best of both worlds. Now I'm going to just skip through what an actual job role looks like. And you can see here, I'm going to start with the job software developer. I'm going to use that job all the way through. And I'm just sharing what that depth looks like. So you can see here with the band and family, the actual job definition, that it has 4 key responsibilities for the job. And of course, these are all editable. So you can add more data and change it as needed. Then what does a job band mean? Some companies use job band models and some do not. Typically, your job band model is going to align with your pay grade model. So where do people fit on the continuum in the hierarchy? Software developer competencies. So as we said, for each job role, it comes with a set of competencies, and these competencies can range anywhere between 20 and 50 competencies each. And in this particular case, what we're going to look at is the skill of a web software designer. So this competency name is web software design. And then you can see here that we've set it at a target proficiency level of 2. If you remember, we have 4. But what does working experience mean? Well, in this particular area, you can see here at the top, I'm referencing the specific skill, still web software design. And we provide the 4 levels, and we define those indicators at great length. Now, what this model also assumes is that if we're saying, hey, we really want this software programmer to be at a level of working experience, it assumes that they also have a basic understanding. So it's very progressive in how the model operates within the framework. But you can clearly see here, the individual can look at this and say, yes, I have it, or no, I don't. Or the manager can look at it and say, yes, this individual has it, or no, it don't. It's really transparent. Now, as we said, we serve up learning options and learning recommendations. And those things come in the form of books and manuals and website links. And then you can add to this from your own learning management software. But what's really important is when I looked at the global knowledge study, if you take a look here, you're going to see across US and Canada in particular, how individuals prefer to learn. So you can see here, researching a topic online is the #1 method. We need to give them tools that enable them to do their self-directed search for materials and resources. Secondly, they're attending webinars. And then, they're doing lunch and learns. So we need to make sure that we're enabling that from a learning perspective. And IBM's library does just that. So, when you're thinking about how do we close gaps in your own environment, take that data into consideration. Now, the other thing that we recommend are those development options. How can we close gaps? What can employees do to improve? And we can provide both qualitative and quantitative. Now, if you look here at the reasons for training, why are people going to focus on skill development? First and foremost, they're going to focus on building new skills. Secondly, they're going to prepare for certification. So you can see they're highly driven. If you look at the IT staff column, 50% are driven for those certifications. And then 33% of them are preparing either for a job move internally or a job move externally. So with those top 3 covered, we can help employees develop quite well. Now, the coaching tips can be served up for managers in coaching their employees in this particular area, or TalentGuard can serve them up directly to each individual. That's completely up to you. And then interview questions. So whether you are interviewing people for lateral moves or upward moves, you are provided with interview questions that help you determine as a manager or as an HR professional or recruiter, are these people closing the gap in this particular area? So that information together can get you off the ground. Now, the other component that's important as part of these job roles is having the certifications tied to those job roles. So we can do that, and certifications matter. So when you're looking at this chart provided by Global Knowledge, you can see from a ranking perspective that most IT professionals are focused on cybersecurity, cloud computing, and network infrastructure certifications. So if we want to develop our team, then those are going to be the key areas that they're focused on first and foremost. So next, what I'm going to do is ask Jennifer to talk about Iventure's approach, because they chose to build their own structure internally. And so Jennifer, why don't you run with it here?
Sure. Yeah, so what I really like about this is that you can kind of customize it to whatever the needs are of your company. So whether you buy it or you build it, it's completely customizable, which has been, a huge asset for us. But the main reason we decided to build ours out from scratch was we just had certain technical skills that were really specific for our industry and our company that necessarily maybe weren't in the competency library because they were so specific to what we wanted it to look like. We just had a set way of how we wanted to implement it, and it just made sense for us to do it in-house. But I'm not going to lie, building it out can be very time consuming. I think there are pros and cons to both options, and you have to do what makes the most sense for your company. You can't do it alone, I will say that. You definitely have you have to have other people that are passionate about it and want to be and are invested in, the development of the team and have a clear idea of where they want to take it. I worked really closely with our director of operations as well as some subject matter experts in our company to really determine what those key skills were that we wanted most out of our IT professionals and the job roles that they were in. And then from there, we created indicators for each of those skills. So the proficiency levels, and that was at the basic, intermediate, and expert level. And then we took those and assigned them to the job roles. So whether it was for a system administrator or a project engineer, what were the specific skills we needed to have in each of those different positions. And then once we had all of that, which that probably took the longest amount of time with gathering all of that, then obviously just inputting the data in the system. And that can be time consuming as well, but that's more on the administrative side. So I would say for me and for us, it took about a full year to develop and implement it. But this wasn't the only thing that we were working on. So that kind of stretched out the time a bit. I think if you have somebody that's fully dedicated on it, again, depending on the size of your company and whatnot, if you have people who are specifically devoted on just doing this, it would have happened a lot sooner. But we had time, so it did take us a year. But this example on this slide kind of just shows the different skills that we've put into it. So this is just an example of kind of a small part of it, but security, networking, and desktop and servers. So that's kind of what we measured our team on, and then underneath that main technology skill, if you see here networking, then we had different sub-technology skills. So underneath networking, we had routers, switching, wireless, and then LAN and WAN. We can go to the next slide, yep. So if you see here under routing, then it shows the indicator of proficiency level. So it shows basic, intermediate, and expert. And for basic level knowledge in routing, we're saying that we want somebody to be able to understand what command line tools are and understand what a static route is. So it's pretty basic. But that kind of gives you an idea of how you can break it down. And then this is just another example. So we also look at desktop for our team and then the different sub-technologies underneath that, as you can see listed here. And then under each of those, again, it breaks it down by basic, intermediate, and expert. So in mobile devices, for example, you'll see in an expert level, we want our team to be able to understand how to set up and remove email on a portable device, sync and manage contact lists, calendars, and communication functions. So that's just kind of a small sample of kind of what we did.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Now, as Jennifer said, it took her about a year. She had to use a lot of experts in helping her to build out the actual technical content. So this chart just helps you to weigh your pros and cons. And IBM put this together, and I think it's an excellent way to think about what it takes. If you have and buy a full library, right, that would be TalentGuard's recommended approach. Your competency development phase is weeks. So typically you get the library, you get your subject matter experts in, you're reviewing the content that's already there. Then you can spend 80% of your effort working to make the model work internally, doing the assessment, doing the strategic stuff. As Jennifer said, the typical approach where most organizations spend their time, and we're talking months to many years, is on actually developing that library. So they're spending 80% of their effort on getting the library right, and then 20% of the effort really making it work in the organization. And what we've seen, TalentGuard, is that many companies don't even get past the development phase. It fizzles out, something happens, somebody moves jobs. So, when you're thinking about how you want to do it internally, just think about that as a potential strategy for moving forward. Now let's move on to step number 2, identifying employees' existing skills. For companies to be successful, they must address those skill gaps. Most IT organizations do not know if their team has the skills needed to meet company goals. Like in Jennifer's example, she can query on any of that data at any time. So now that you have an idea of, or once you have an idea of whether you're going to build or buy, we have to actually measure it. We can't assume that employees know what is expected of them. Because expectations change often, right? So we're in a fast-moving industry. What you wanted 6 months ago might not be what you wanted, what you want now. And how do employees know that? How are you communicating that to them? So that's what this section is all about. Now, a research finding by Aberdeen Group is that those companies who use assessments to understand the level of skills with their employees end up having 67% higher engagement, 60% higher exceeds if you're actually going to measure people against the job role, and then higher retention overall. So, it's important. However, pinpointing skill gaps can be time consuming and it can be complex. The majority of companies, large and small, believe that skill shortages are due to a lack of training. So if you actually get to the point of identifying the skills, we have to be able to support employees in developing those skills. So what TalentGuard is here to do is help you figure out how to do that. Now, this is an example of an assessment. It's probably hard to read, but basically the point that I want to make on this slide is the majority of organizations that TalentGuard has worked with to date are going to assess at the skill level. And so in this particular example, and then Jennifer's example, mobile devices would be that skill area. People are going to assess against that. And when you assess against that level versus doing what we call a proficiency assessment, really assessing at the indicator level, and these 4 levels, Jennifer had 3, is that it's too broad. How do you know what that really means? There's a lack of a standard definition across the proficiencies. There's an inability to provide accurate learning recommendations at this skill assessment level because we don't really know what employees have and what they don't have. So, it's TalentGuard's recommendation that you really use a proficiency assessment when assessing your IT staff's skills, because then at that point, the results will be meaningful, objective, and accurate when you're looking at the talent needed to foster your business goals. Now, Jennifer's going to talk to what her talent profile looks like for a system administrator.
So yeah, this is just a snippet from one of our talent profiles. The bullseye there just lets you know what level is required for that particular position, and then the star indicates that person is fully proficient in that skill or at that particular level. So it's nice because it's a quick snapshot. You can really see where that employer individual is at in that particular skill.
Yeah, and what I really like about this, Jennifer, is that the star indicates that skill's needed at a basic level, but you can see 3 stars, which means that the employee is more than qualified than what's needed for the role.
Yeah, definitely. And then the proficiency assessments that Linda was talking about, kind of how we did ours. is that we had initial meetings with the employee and the manager, and these meetings lasted from 2 to 3 hours. Now, companies are going to do these in all different types of ways, but we thought it was more value added for the manager and the employee to sit down and go through all of it together, so they could really validate whether they had a true understanding of that skill or whether they'd actually gone out and implemented that type of technology before. So that initial meeting, just with the extent of how long the talent profile was for us, did take 2 to 3 hours or so. So what I loved about the talent profile and doing the proficiency assessment was that the employee had a clear idea of what they still needed work in. So once they were completed with the entire talent profile, they really knew where their gaps were. It's black and white. And I know prior to doing this, it was kind of fuzzy for our employees on what specific skills, qualifications they needed in order to advance in their careers. But with this, they always know where they're at. I thought something else that was really neat is that you can also include links next to the skill in their talent profile that can take the employee right to a technical training site or an LMS site to help them get more information on a skill in question. So they can take them right to a training tool that will essentially help them in that gap.
Great.
I also learned kind of early on when doing this proficiency assessments, because they were 2 to 3 hours long, the employees kind of felt like they were a test. It was very overwhelming and it felt like a test. So as we got through more employees, we just made sure to really prep them beforehand, let them know while it was an assessment, there's no right or wrong. It was just a starting point to really help them get to where they wanted to go. And once they kind of put the work in on that piece of it, that, they'd have a kind of a clear direction going forward. So, we really liked that aspect of it.
Yeah, those are all great points. Thank you, Jennifer. Now, what can an IT assessment answer? Well, it can, once you have all this assessment data, you can ask questions like, what are our core IT competencies? Are we leveraging them? What is our greatest IT skill, asset, and weakness? And if it's a weakness, could it hurt productivity or future projects that you're either awarded or new technology that you bring in-house? Where does your investment in training need to be? And then are our initiatives reducing the skill gap? So are we actually moving the needle in training? And the way that you can go about that is really shedding light across the whole enterprise. So if you're looking at all of your job families on the left, and then we're looking at all those critical competencies that you track as an organization on the top, you will start to see where, in this case, you have no gap in the green, where you have some gap in the yellow, and where you have major gaps in the red. And you're able to drill into that data to see, well, who does the gap exist with, right? So it's not just about the employees and the managers. We've got to take it up to an organizational level so it gives you insight on how to act. Do we need to accelerate training for certain individuals? And having a heat map like this will enable you to do that. Now, the other thing that I want to point out is that, trends are important. And I say this to customers all the time. Jennifer got her information updated, but she has to think about trends. What trends are forthcoming? What types of technologies, as an IT service provider, they're not only thinking about themselves, they have to think about every client that they work with and the technologies that they're going to adopt. So we have to make sure that we're managing trends and that you are updating your library on a regular basis. And now, once we have done the assessment, so we've got the content in there, we know what our competency framework is, we've assessed those employees, we need to actually start closing the gaps. This is where we start making action plans for both training and hiring. And we have to determine internally how much time can you invest in training. If you're an IT services company, you have billable hours and you want those employees to be or contractors to be working as much as they possibly can. But in order to continue to develop those employees, you have to make some decisions and determination about how you're going to do that. Some organizations have the similar training sessions, the same time every week. Some incent people to do it on their own, but you'll have to think about that strategy as you move forward so that you are making the employee most productive, but you're also enabling them to develop new skills at the same time. Now, step 3, how do we actually go and develop our people's skills? Now, we hear a lot about the career ladder. Well, TalentGuard disrupts the IT career ladder. Not that it's completely invalid, but employees want to be able to look up the organization, across the organization. So that traditional notion of a career ladder is becoming less important unless you truly want to, get on the management track. And, that's very predictable. It's very predetermined. And what we want to be able to do is to help employees think about career paths based on their skills and their experiences. We want to help them move away from the traditional progression path, more into the experiences that one wants to have internally within that organization. So modern organizations are moving people in greater succession. I know Jennifer and I had this conversation a couple weeks ago. She has to move somebody from a role that they're in now to a role that they're not quite ready for. So that was unanticipated. So she's having to accelerate people even before they're ready. So how are we going to be able to handle that in the future? Because it's happening more and more and more. And these employees have been in the past really struggling to adapt. They're trying to learn their own role. Now they have to learn skills for a new role. They might have to learn some new technologies. So we have to be able to put in front of an employee all the data that they need to make informed decisions, as well as enabling the manager to guide and coach that employee down that path. So what we've seen in the past is a lot of traditional Excel career laddering. Now, it's completely ineffective. For the sheer fact that if you're going to put a career ladder like this, or it's a visual one like the other, the sheer magnitude of updating that is so difficult. Then secondly, there's no comparison of who the employee is to the actual spreadsheet. So the employee really doesn't know unless they're doing a one-for-one comparison on every single job role, and the sheer number of job roles that one could compare themselves to. Maybe you only have 90 job roles in the company, but there could be hundreds and hundreds of different progressions that one could make. So it's a very tedious and time-consuming process. And then if you're an organization that's large enough to support career moves beyond your IT department, for example, in customer support or in marketing, should you want to allow those cross-departmental moves, the sheer number of job analysis becomes just completely impossible. It's excruciating and daunting. So employees give up on it. Now, we say paper-based career mobility is impossible. For the sheer fact, I love this picture of this woman, because she's thinking about her talent profile times the number of job roles she's interested, times the number of departments that they have in the organization, and the number of geographies. So it's really the complexity model. Now, from an organizational level, right, employees have to think about their own personal growth. They have to think about their goals, their development. They're thinking about the training that they need to do. We need to make sure that they're highly motivated to develop skills. But on the other side, organizations need to think about compliance, right? Not only do they need to think about that employee's growth, but what regulations do they have? If I am a gold provider for Cisco, routers, then if I need to have 3 certified Cisco employees to keep that status, how do I know that I've actually kept that status? So TalentGuard came up with a way to bridge the gap between, career mobility and compliance. And so we make it easier for you to engage in that. And I'm going to have Jennifer talk to that, because she has career pathing and she has certification, and how that's helped her organization bridge the growth and compliance issues. Jennifer?
Yeah, I think you can go to the next slide.
Oh, okay. So you don't want to talk about the career path. So in a nutshell, one would have an individual in the middle, which would be who that person is today. And then around that lattice would be the potential job moves that one can make. And the color indicates whether they're ready now to make that move or not. And in the next slide is the certification.
Yeah, so we've got our own certifications and labs that are tied to job roles. So you can see this is for a system administrator. It shows what's required. We have, a core network lab, a core certifications, exchange lab, RDS lab, and those are all our in-house labs that we've built. But essentially, an employee, let's say they need the base administrator certification that you see here, it's saying two of those certifications are required. We allow the employee to go in and pick which certifications they want based on their focus, their passion, the positions that they want to go towards. So they can literally just pick the two that they want, and then that drops those into their goals. So we've been really able to, because we don't want to say that certifications are everything. They are important, but we also want to give the employees some flexibility in the certifications that they do go for. So this tool has really helped us do just that. And I will say we've really seen a huge uptick in performance since rolling this out. We've seen employees been much more driven to achieve their certifications in labs. They know that doing so is really going to increase their opportunity to move up and advance in the company. And we've really been able to fill a lot of the technical gaps as well. So it's been helpful.
Awesome. So how does our thinking need to change? And what I mean by this is, what kinds of opportunities can we offer employees that are meaningful? How do we need to change from thinking about career paths to career experiences? And TalentGuard has spent an exorbitant amount of time speaking with clients about how to achieve that. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But we know that with digital disruption, we have to make it easier for organizations and for employees to be able to engage in those experiences. So as we're engaging with you, as we will engage with you in the future, those are the kinds of questions that we will pose to you as we continue to roll out technology that helps solve the problem. So in the 2017 Deloitte Global Human Trends Report, it's rewriting the rules for the digital age. They state that the workforce is changing. It's more digital, it's more global, it's diverse, it's automation savvy, and social media proficient. At the same time, business expectations, needs, and demands are evolving faster than ever before. We are living in a digital age, and TalentGuard, because of that, TalentGuard had to initiate an initiative, and Iventures was part of that, to reinvent our technology and processes, reinvent the user interface to cater to those new rules. So I'd like to share a few of those with you today to highlight that. So what Jennifer showed you in that employee dashboard and assessment, this is TalentGuard's new employee profile dashboard, where we can still indicate the target that's needed for the role, and then the employee can assess against that. We have social sharing, people can be endorsed. But what's most important in this is people always, when we talk to organizations, they said their biggest challenge is if an employee self-assesses, that's the most subjective. And then their manager would give input, and sometimes, right, that could still be a little bit subjective. So how do we get to a level of objectivity? Well, what TalentGuard has done, because we have a 360 tool, is we have a credibility factor. And you can see here where it says self, that means the employee has self-assessed. In the area where it's manager reviewed, it means the manager has reviewed and validated that particular skill set. And then you see here something called 360 review. If the skill of the job role has been used in any 360 assessment, we will auto post that update here. So this means that many people outside of just the manager have endorsed that person for that particular skill. And something we recently introduced is we embedded IBM's assessment library. And in that library, they can assess against skills like HTML or leadership. So we have a fourth level now called proved. And that means that you took an actual test and you tested out against that skill set. So you can click that link and review that actual employee's tested skill. So it's pretty profound in establishing credibility of, does this person actually possess it? Secondly, we know that employees want to look at jobs in a certain way, and it's very different than how organizations want to serve up that data. So TalentGuard system, you don't even need to build out progression steps anymore. Our system is smart enough to do all the algorithms on the back end, and then we are now serving up information in various different ways. We will automatically serve up the most common destinations for the person in this role, and it was a user experience manager. So you can see here, common destinations. We can now serve up company recommended. So if you want to show employees what paths you would like them to take because you're trying to close critical skill gaps, you can do that. Or employees can look at most cross-departmental experience or the most skills gained. And we will show them the various different paths that one can take through that experience. And if somebody wants to continue to build out a career canvas, is what we now call it, they can do that. And our career canvas now works much like Ancestry.com. We can indicate whether a role has a vacancy, if it's a critical role. And as we hit these light bulbs, it automatically makes recommendations on what a next role could be. And as you add roles, we serve up a variety of different tips, like, is this role competitive? And we have about 12 to 15 different tips that you can, as an administrator, you can say you want on or not. And then it's all drag and drop. It's super cool. And then finally, what does it look like to show your gaps? Now, we had two different things that people wanted as we were asking them questions. One, the ability to turn on or turn off the time horizon, which you can do. They want to show people in the role, and then other people that have either engaged on a skill set or endorsed you, the number of net new skills that you would gain. And the other thing that people really wanted was to show mentors for the career path. And what that means in this new UI is that now we can serve up every person who has taken this exact path, from the UX designer to the chief information officer, that have traversed that path exactly, could now be mentors for that role. So we take it from an individual role to an actual career experience so that employees have somebody to reference. Now we've also really socialized the career experience. So not only can you see your gaps, you can serve up endorsements and testimonial for the roles. You can serve up day in the life of. You can have reviews on the role. We're serving up development options directly in that profile, and similar roles. So at every given time, we're really trying to make it social and fun. And then on the certification side, it's very similar as well. We now have a dashboard where the manager can simply click in and look at their certifications in addition to the career pathing paths that the employees have shared interest in, and then really drill in based on the certification, the member, or by the actual details. So we make it super simple for you to engage in that data. So how do you get started as an organization? Well, first you have to have a software vendor. That could be TalentGuard or some other vendor out there. You got to have a budget and you've got to have resources. As Jennifer said, it takes time to make this initiative going. The types of software that you need from a vendor is a skills assessment, a certification tracker, career pathing, and a learning plan. Those would be the core things that you need to enable what we're talking about here today. And once you have that, then what you need to really do in-house is identify your leading and lagging IT priorities. You have to determine whether you want to build out or buy your model. You also have to think about how you want to associate your existing learning and development options, or if you want a third party to supplement what you're doing, like a lynda.com or an Open Sesame. And then the most important thing is prioritizing your most critical roles first. Where do you need to get started? Because I always say you don't have to roll out the whole boat. Take it one job role at a time and really get those right. And then as you are rolling out people in those job roles, they can be introduced to your system. And lastly, you got to have buy-in, because as Jennifer said, it does take time to create. So they need to know the value of what they're getting into. So finally, the last step, monitoring and measuring results. What will this do for our organization and why should we get involved with it in the first place? Well, you will, what we say, what it used to be the saying, what gets measured gets done, but we don't believe in that philosophy. It's what gets measured gets improved. We live in a world of continuous improvement. It's always going to be ongoing, and there's no magic wand that is going to help your employees improve. So we've really got to set the stage, we've got to set benchmarks, and then we have to enable employees to actually develop the skills and close those skill gaps so that they can, as Jennifer said, have an uptick in performance, which means that you will be able to minimize your skill shortages when you need them at the right time. Now, what else is important? Well, you want to be able to measure various different key performance indicators. You want to be able to see, from one year to the next, how many new skills were added to your employees' workforce. Where is the proficiency breakdown in our organization? What type of career moves have happened? What types of career moves have happened by gender? These items here on the right are just indicating for you the types of things that you might want to measure to know whether your organization is moving in the right direction. So you can use these as you're speaking to various different vendors or even internally, running this by them. What is important to you? How are we going to make decisions? And then what decisions are important? So how has career pathing and certification management helped Iventures and other companies that we've worked with on, at a high level? We, as an organization, as TalentGuard, try to track improvements in key areas. These include reduction of turnover, higher productivity, a more engaged workforce, lower recruitment costs, and improved profitability from the cost reductions in training. Jennifer, anything you want to add here?
No, I would agree with all that. I think just having the, career paths, the different options, that there's not just one option for an employee, that there's multiple career paths that they can take. Mm-hmm. They don't just feel they have to go down one track. Yeah. I think it's really important for them. And just knowing, you have a tool like this, or you whether it's TalentGuard, or like Linda said, or another tool, showing that you care and are making an investment in the employees, I think just goes a long way. And knowing that they're not stuck in a role. And knowing as they put the work in, whether it's certifications or it's labs or certain skills that they need to get, if they put the work in, that there's another opportunity for them elsewhere. Great. So I think that's what's most important.
Awesome. So that concludes the webinar for today. This is just a slide letting you know the types of technologies and the modules that TalentGuard offers in its cloud SaaS product suite. Not only do we offer the talent framework, we offer those talent analytics, and we provide the software in over 40 automated languages. And what's great about it is not only do we embed already all of IBM data so that it's super easy to deploy, TalentGuard supplements that data with enabling you to have work style preferences. You can include tons of career media like videos, your own videos, or you can import third-party videos, those qualifications and certifications. We take it to a deeper level for you, as well as all the career advice. So without further ado, what we'd like to do is open up the panel to questions and answers. So if you have a question, why don't you send it on over, and for Jennifer, let us know who it's for, and we will try to answer those for you. And I've got one here from Saeed. I think that's the question, and I gotta open this up a little bit. So just give me a second. All right, what are your views on the current market situation with difficulties in placing people with H-1 visas, and not only visa problems, but other issues like skills, remuneration, et cetera, and how to overcome this challenge? So Jennifer, do you guys do any H-1B visas?
We don't usually, no, not at this time. It's not something we won't do, but it's not anything that we deal with on a normal basis.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that market is changing so much. I know when I was at Computer People, and it was a global IT contract staffing firm, I'd say that 75% of our people were on HB1 visas, and
Mhm.
having those people on those visas and managing who was where. Sorry about that, and the skills that they possessed. Was a challenging thing. And we had, 17 branches all over the globe, and managing those skill sets were super hard. And with all the changes going on, in the US with H1 visas, I'm not sure how that's going to shake out from an economic perspective, but, I think it's something we absolutely need to keep watch of in that particular area. So we have another question from Tanya. Could you tell us a little bit about how well this process scales in larger IT organizations? I think the process is the same. What you're probably going to deal with is a lot more job roles than a smaller IT organization, right? So, you may, instead of having 50 job roles, you might have 400 job roles. So, if you're going to build it, it's going to take you a lot more time to build out that data. If you're going to buy it, it doesn't matter how large or small the IT organization is with respect to the content or the software. They're both super scalable, but there is time in how you want to roll it out. And if you want to, if you want to have your career pathing and certifications only within the IT department, that's one thing. If you want to add the rest of your corporate departments like marketing and sales, that obviously is going to take a lot longer. But we've seen deployments for this with the framework is taking as long as 2 to 3 months. And we've seen it like with Jennifer, where it took almost a year for her to get fully ready, where she felt it was in a position where one would want to deploy it and get feedback from an employee. And then from a maintenance perspective, and Jennifer, maybe you can speak to this. We've recommended that employees update their skills at least once a month or every other month. Do you have a policy around that, Jennifer?
No, we haven't had a need. I mean, as things arise, we'll just update it, but nothing's really changed. Like, obviously with IT, it's ever changing. So we'll update our certifications in our labs more frequently than we do our skills.
Yeah, and I know IBM updates their skills. I believe it's once a year, and I'm not sure if it's more than that for IT, but generally speaking, that's what I'm.
Yeah, I think once a year would suffice.
Got it.
I mean, I guess it depends on the company, but.
Yep. Any other questions? We've got a few more minutes here. If you've got some, send them on in. So a question from Alexander. How do you approach the integration with existing HR systems already consisting of employee master data? That's a tricky one. Typically, what TalentGuard has seen anyhow, and we've done a few HRIS integrations, is that TalentGuard's competency framework as well as job framework is much more in depth and breadth. So we typically want to be the system of record for those. Only if the organization wants to, leverage that depth and breadth. If they do not, then we would just we'd create an integration to pass over the existing data into TalentGuard so that then they could do the career pathing and the certification tracking. So, those are things that you would have to discuss with each vendor and their detailed discussions. So, that's just how that works. I hope that answered your question. So Iventures are just asking Jennifer how many employees you have in the organization. I think she said it was right under 100, if I recall.
Yeah, we have 96 employees currently. Not everybody is in the tool yet. We've just rolled it out to our technical staff. Our management team isn't in it yet, nor is our administrative team. So that's what we're working on later this year. Mm-hmm. And we had people dedicated to this project. It was myself and a director of operations, and then a couple subject matter experts to kind of come up with the skill content. And then I had somebody that did some work for me on the administration side with getting it kind of into the tool. So.
Got it. Thank you. Any more questions? We have about a minute here. We're happy to answer them if you have them. No? All right. Well, without further ado, I'd like to thank Jennifer for contributing to the webinar today. I hope that it was beneficial for you. I know our marketing team put up a survey. Our goal is to always provide information that's educational. We want you to learn from these. We don't want them to be too salesy. We really do try to make them educational and best practice oriented. So if you have a minute I think there's maybe, I think you did 4 or 5 questions. We would appreciate it. And then if you have any feedback, if you'd like to talk to TalentGuard, please feel free to reach out. You could just email us at info@talentguard.com. Once again, this presentation has been recorded. It will be available for download on our website in our resource center. And we typically email our database when that is available for download. Typically, we have it up within 24 hours, so you could also go there as well. So I want to thank everybody so much for your time today, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.